Hi, my name is Angelo, probably better known from my channel name, NooBiker, on YouTube. I'm a relatively late comer to motorcycling, having started in my mid-40s. I'm trying to make up for it now by using my motorcycle as much as possible, traveling and making videos.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is Angelo, or Noob, from the YouTube channel NooBiker. Noob has published over 530 videos in a 7-year period, covering many aspects of motorcycling culture. We'll get to my chat with Noob shortly. Before we do that, there's a few things I'd like to bring to your attention. Firstly, Danny Lilwall, my guest from episode 35, plus also one of 3 guests on episode 51, has made an appearance on the Binge Moto podcast, talking about his filmmaking and motorcycling. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. I'll put the links in the show notes. You might also discover that Clive Barber and I were recently on the Binge Moto podcast too, talking about the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival and other things. Speaking of festivals, I attended the Lisbon Motorcycle Film Festival over the weekend of the 22nd to the 24th of May. It's been running for 10 years now and continues to attract top films and good crowds. I was hosted by my friend Pedro Bruno Rodriguez, whose film Beyond Tennis was screened at the festival. How do I know Pedro? Well, he also produces a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. Former guest Ferdia Durkin, who featured on episode 40, has had his first article published in the UK's Bike magazine. The article is called A Bonnie Wee Trip and can be read online. You'll find the link in the show notes too. Ferdia is currently in Morocco, continuing his epic adventure. This one's for the audio geeks. I've recently invested in some remarkably good audio cleanup software based on a recommendation given to me by episode 44 guest Jeff McGarvey. That software is called dxLevel Pro, and the company that makes it, Accentize, has just released a free audio plugin called dxLevel, which, according to their website, and I quote, keeps dialogue consistent across speakers, scenes and recordings with intelligent loudness corrections. I've only just started to play around with it myself, but if you're the kind of filmmaker or podcaster that struggles with maintaining consistent audio levels across multiple speakers, you might want to check it out. Finally, a quick reminder about the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival 2027, which has launched and is already taking submissions via our Film Freeway page. Tickets for the festival are expected to be on sale from July. Keep an eye on www.advmotofilmfest.com and the festival's Instagram account for the latest information. You'll find all the links in the show notes, of course. Don't forget, you can find the Real Riders Podcast on Instagram, where I post, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, I occasionally post about that on Blue Sky. Links for both the Instagram and Blue Sky accounts can be found in the show notes. Finally, if you want to help keep the servers running, pumping out the episodes, you can now support the podcast via Buy Me a Coffee donations. I have a few operational costs associated with hosting and remote recording infrastructure, and any donations go towards paying for those. The link is in the show notes and also in my link tree, which you can find in my Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube account profiles. Righto, let's get to my talk with Noob. Hi Noob, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. Are you well?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, look, it's my pleasure. To be honest, you've sort of been on my radar and therefore a target to come on the podcast for quite some time. So I'm really happy that we're able to do it at last. Look, I think an interesting place to start is your history with motorcycling, given that you came to it in your 40s. Can you tell me how and why you got into motorcycling?
Well, I started riding for myself in my mid-40s. I'm guessing it's a midlife crisis type of thing. But really, historically, my dad was a motorcycle rider. Some of my earliest memories were riding upright on the little front bar of his mobilette around our neighborhood. And then he used to commute to work and take me to my swimming lessons back in Brazil, where I grew up. This is in the 70s. But he was very, very safety conscious for the time. So he always made me wear a helmet, which was not compulsory. So I always wore a helmet to go with my Speedos, bathing robe, and flip-flops. And then I kind of never really got into motorcycling. I then kind of emigrated. 16, clumsy and shy. I went to London and as the song says, and didn't get into it. Went to university, got married, got a job, blah blah blah. And then in my 40s, I've got a little bit of spare cash, a little bit more free time. I'm relaxing a little bit, and so I decided to learn it. An opportunity to do something new, to learn something new, to keep learning, and that's kind of what got me into it. But there's also memories from my childhood.
Yeah. What surprised you the most about starting to ride a motorcycle at that age?
Just how much it takes you to get used to some of the mechanics, and then what a different community it is. The people who ride motorcycles, you don't normally see them because they're wearing something, they're wearing a helmet and they're going past. And then you get to meet them and it's just normal people. Without you knowing, you might think they are, a completely different breed. But once you get into it, then you say, well, there's all sorts. All sizes and shapes, ages, colors, genders. So it's great.
Yeah, there's something kind of odd about motorcycling because when we're doing it, well, I guess intercoms have kind of changed this a little bit, but when we're doing it, it's a very sort of solo activity. But then when we stop doing it, even if we're doing it in a group, then when we stop doing it, suddenly we're all talking. It's a very social activity. So it sort of swings from one to the other. I was thinking about this today because I have bored people in the past about the fact that I used to do quite a lot of scuba diving. And in some ways, scuba diving is a little bit the same because when you're underwater, you can't talk to anyone, at least not when I was diving. But then when you're on the top, it's a very social, very chatty kind of thing. I don't know if that's a parallel that resonates as well.
I very much identify with that. I was also quite big into scuba diving. Before I did the motorcycling, my first midlife crisis thing was to learn to scuba dive. And then when I did and got all the equipment for that, then I decided that I needed more equipment, so I went for motorcycling. And so you're right. I mean, there are comms helmets you can use, but for me, when I'm doing one or the other, I really want to be in the moment. I want to be silent with my thoughts and what I'm seeing. I mean, I have been on rides where I've been grouped up and it can be a laugh, but it's once in a while, it's okay. But when I'm on, I just want to be focused on the moment. Going back to the scuba diving, you always hear about this tale of the couple who come out of a dive and, husband and wife, they come out of a dive and she takes off her mask and her mouthpiece and she says, and another thing.
I think I've seen that. I was lucky enough once to go to the Maldives when we were living in Asia, and just before we left, I was lucky enough to go with my youngest son, who's dead keen on diving as well. And we went to the Maldives and we were on a liverboard, and it was mainly full of Germans, but there was one Spanish couple who were lovely, but they obviously on one dive, they had some sort of domestic dispute underwater. And as soon as they came up to the surface, they were just yelling and screaming at each other. And the rest of us were like, what is going on? It's not really the kind of chill dive we just had. Yeah, it was quite funny. Yeah.
But you get that in the motorcycling as well. You go for a ride together, you see something together, and as soon as you stop, the first thing you take it out, did you see that? And what was that?
Yeah. It's that shared experience, and you're sort of saving it up to talk about it. Like, did you see that blue spotted, octopus or that humpback whale or whatever? Or did you see that amazing, view as you came around the corner? And yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Currently, what's your favorite thing about motorcycling?
I do like to travel. I do like to see different parts of the country. and go places that I haven't been and get to see how things are different and see the sites. But one of the main things I'm involved in right now is coaching advanced motorcycling with my local IAM group. And I really enjoy that. I really enjoy passing it on. I still consider myself to be a noob, hence the channel name. I'll always consider myself to be a newcomer and somebody who's learning. The little bit that I have learned and that has benefited me, I like to pass that on to people who are interested in it. I've learned that you can't push it. If people are not interested, they're not interested. So there's no point trying to gush about the benefits. But people who voluntarily come to the group and want to be coached, I find it very rewarding to see them progress in their riding and get better and safer. So that's one of the main things that I'm doing right now, other than kind of filming my own adventures and misadventures.
Yeah, I noticed, I think I watched one of your videos where you sort of did like a practice run where you were talking through, it was about half-hour ride, and you were talking through all the hazards and just your road positioning and stuff. I mean, when did you start doing that? And I guess, you must have done some advanced training yourself before you got into being an observer, is that right?
Yeah, so that's right. When I first started and I got on my 125 and I commuted to work for a year on a CB 125F, I had a mate at work who told me, Angelo, as soon as you pass your test, your direct access test, go and get some advanced training. You're not a young guy. You can't afford to learn from experience because your bones won't heal as quickly. So go and join your local group. And so I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And I bought my first big bike, a Kawasaki Ninja 650. And I didn't know anybody who rode motorcycles. I didn't know where to go. So I just opened Google Maps and I found, there's an airfield near me and there's a cafe in there. That sounds interesting. I'll go right over there and see what it's all about. And as I'm sitting there having my cup of tea and my breakfast, I spot a whole group of bikes at the end of the runway, people going up and down the runway on this airfield. So I'm like, what's going on here? And I rode over there after finishing my breakfast. And the guy says, yeah, we are the East London Advanced Motorcyclists. We're the local IAM group, and this is the start of our new course. It was January. So it was a January course, the winter course, as it were. And I said, okay, I'm interested in joining that. How can I do that? He says, I'm the membership secretary. Give me your details, and I'll send you an email, and you sign up. And yeah, so I did the course. Because I was kind of relatively new, I think it took me quite a bit of time to complete it, but you get all the one-to-one coaching to get your test ready. I did my test. I passed my test, the advanced test, as it were. And then just carried on joining the group for social rides and trips and social events, etc. Just meeting more people, going out for rides together, like-minded people who are going to ride to a certain mindset. Mm. And eventually somebody says, well, we think you'd make a good observer. And I kind of got roped into doing that. So then you have to go through a whole different course. Your riding is already okay because you're already doing it to advance, but the observing and the coaching is about how you deliver that training, how you engage with the customer, as it were, how you make them comfortable, how you ask them open questions, how you give them feedback, and all of that. And so, yeah, I'm glad that I got roped into doing that. I kind of enjoy it.
Do you find that's an effective way to develop riders' skills on the road?
Well, that's what it's all about. It's about going beyond what's required just to pass the test, but doing it in a way that kind of shortcuts all of that, making the mistakes and learning from your mistakes. As my mate said, I'm no longer young, I'm 45. If I break a bone, it's going to take a long time to heal. And I'm going to be jeopardizing my livelihood, my income, and my family. So short circuit that. Learn to do the right things before you develop a whole load of bad habits. And so we find that for people, even people who come to me, who have been riding for a lot longer than me sometimes, but you talk to them and you explain what it's about and how it gets put together and why, and that it's based on the police handbook, the roadcraft book, and that it applies for a reason. And then they said, you know what, I never knew that. I never thought about it that way. The penny has dropped, and it's hugely improved my attitude, my safety margins, my enjoyment of motorcycling, because I'm now less stressed. I'm just more relaxed.
Mm. Do you find the people who come to participate in the courses, are there people who just seem to have a almost a natural ability in terms of reading the road, the hazards of the road, and other people who are a little bit more clueless and really have to work hard at actually learning what the hazards are?
We get a huge mix of people joining. East London, so it's a massive area, massive catchment area. It's a hugely diverse area of the city and by extension of the country. So you get all ages. You get people who have just passed their test a few months ago, to people who were curious before and are hugely experienced and have been riding for ages and ages, but something's happened and they want to do it, to people who did it a few years and then they stopped to raise a family and now they want to get back into it, but they're a little bit scared and they want to gain some confidence. People who have had an accident and want to get back and get that confidence back. There's a hugely diverse set of reasons for people to reach out and join, and a huge diversity of people doing it. As I said, all ethnicities, genders, ages. It's very diverse. It's not one of the things I find really funny is when you hear people with their perception of what the IAM is, which is just a whole bunch of old guys, it's true in my case, with high visibility vests riding GSs. There's maybe 2 GSs in the group. Ranges from people on scooters to people on Hayabusas and everything in between. Loud pipes, quiet pipes, hipsters, racers, what have you.
It's not a charity that I know much about, mainly because I don't live in the UK, but is it an organisation that's constantly looking for people to join? Like, is it difficult for them to find people who want to do the training that you've done, or is it an organisation that doesn't have difficulty attracting people to come along and be observers?
It's a funny old organisation. I don't know much about the central sort of head office structure. There is an IAM organisation, and then there are local groups who are in themselves local charities, who are organised themselves independently, but they're affiliated, and therefore what we get is the booking system. So people have to come through head office to the main registration system. Then they get assigned to the local group depending on where they live. So you're always paired up with somebody close to where you live, and you get the materials, the course book, and you get some other resources and websites, and the usual quality control and rule books and assistance with that kind of stuff. You get past a little bit of the money that they pay for the membership of the IAM, but then you have your own local group membership. And so I'm giving my experience of my group in my area, but I know that the course and the material is delivered very differently depending who is your local group.
Mm-hmm.
There may be groups that are just as people describe them. Maybe there is a reason why people describe it as just a bunch of old guys in high-vis riding GSs. I'm saying your mileage may vary. In my experience, it's not like that. Other people's experience might be like that. It's a bit of a challenge in terms of because of the diversity of areas and groups and how they're organized and who leads them, etc., that it's not very consistent from one end of the country to the other. There is some commonality because there is a set course and a syllabus, but how you deliver it, the fact that we deliver it in a certain way by running this machine control day and some theory sessions and some organized rides. In other places, you might just say, okay, you've joined, okay, fine, here's your one-to-one observer, off you go and do your thing. Where because we get 3 courses a year, each of them with about 25 to 30 people joining every 3 months, 3 times a year, we get a huge turnover of people joining, and it becomes the group itself has got over 200 members. So yeah, as you can imagine, it's very different from some other part of the country where it might be a very small group.
Yeah. And as an observer, do you have to go through some sort of regular reassessment yourself?
Yes. you get examined by an outside examiner who will come and role play and make sure that you're delivering it to the standard that they expect, that you're hitting all the keywords, that you're treating the customer right. You've arranged for an appropriate place to meet and an appropriate route for the brief that you've had, that you're asking the right questions, that you're picking up on the normal faults, because you demonstrate, he'll play stooge and pretend that he doesn't know what he's doing. And then he's looking at how you talk to him and fix those things. And then he has to look at how you write as well. So yeah, I think that happens every 3 years. So my one's probably due for next year.
Okay. I'm dying to ask you a question actually about the UK licensing system, which I don't fully understand. I hear a lot about this sort of initial step, which is at the CBD. Is it CBD or CBT? I can't remember.
Compulsory basic training. But I think CBD is an entirely different thing.
Yeah. I am going to edit this. This is why I don't do this live. So I've heard about the CBT, and then I hear about this thing called direct access. Now, does that mean that people can go from having relatively little experience of tootering around on a 125, and then they can go buy a litre superbike? And can that actually happen? Is it dependent on age or something? How does it actually work in the UK?
There are definitely age bands. I'm not going to tell you what they are off the top of my head because I don't know. But I know that as soon as you're 18 and you're able to get a provisional license, I believe you can do a compulsory basic training, which allows you to ride up to a 125, up to whatever the kilowatt is, 17 kilowatt motorcycle.
Whatever.
With L plates. So you basically go into a training center, and there is a local CBT assessor in there. He will give you a day's course. He'll talk to you about the highway code and the law and all of that. And you do some exercises and learn how to control your machine inside an enclosed area. And you can do it on a scooter or you can do it on a geared bike. And then in the afternoon, you put a radio in your helmet and he'll take you out. Usually he'll take out 2 riders. He'll have radio control one way, and he'll take you out on the road. And based on how you behave on the road, he will then sign, this is your CBT certificate. He hands it to you, and now you can go and ride a 125 on your own, so long as you put your L plates on. And you're not allowed to go on the motorway.
Okay.
And you're not allowed to carry a passenger.
Yep.
And then what you're supposed to do in theory is you're then supposed to go and practice on that 125. Then you're supposed to go and do your theory test. So you don't have to have a theory test done. You don't have to prove that you know the laws of the road before you do this, before you go out on the road. You have to do a theory test, and then you have to take the direct access exams, which is taken on a bigger bike. I think they have to be 600cc. Don't quote me on that. And a certain power. And it's in 2 parts. There's an enclosed test inside an enclosed area. And then there's an on-the-road assessment with the examiner behind you. And that's a government examiner, part of the Driver and Vehicle Safety Agency, DVSA. And depending on how you do on that, you have to pass the module 1 or mod 1 as they call it, which is the inside the enclosed area. And then you go out on the road for your module 2 or mod 2. And then you have to pass both of them. And then they'll give you your A license, the A endorsement on your license. And then you can go out and buy whatever bike you want. But if you're under 24, you can do the whole mod 1, mod 2, and you can get your license, but it's an A1 license. So it's restricted to a certain power.
Right.
Then when you pass 24, you have to do the same test again. Exactly the same test. And I know about that because I obviously did it a few years ago, the whole process. But here's the thing, Simon. As I said, the CBT is, the guy can give you that on the day. So there are actual places in the UK where you can go and spend 3 or 4 or 5 days and do everything in one go. So you can go in completely fresh and do your CBT and get your CBT certificate. And then you can do some training, and then you can go for your test within the space of 5 days if you wanted to.
Yeah, I guess I can, maybe it's just because I'm too old, but I think to get onto a really powerful bike with such little experience does scare me. And I don't know. Do you have I guess what I'm driving at is, do you have an opinion about that yourself? What, with all your experience, particularly through the IAM?
I'm going to give you a very IAM answer. And the answer is, it depends. I think it's more about the attitude of the person than the level of age or experience that they have. If they think they're invincible, they can think you're invincible at 50.
Yeah.
Go for it. If you are more risk averse or more risk aware, then you might have a different attitude. I don't think it's an age related thing. I don't think it's an experience related thing. I think it's a personal attitude thing.
Mm. That certainly makes a lot of sense to me. I think I've always been quite risk averse, and that's been good for me in terms of not running into things or avoiding things running into me. And I tend to think that's just more an attitude thing rather than a experience thing. I think experience helps, but I think it's I don't know, is aptitude the right word? But it's certainly an attitude that I think I've always had.
It's an attitude. If you are risk aware and you are safety conscious, I can put you on a Hayabusa and you'll be fine. Because you'll learn to control it, and you do it in a way that you're riding within your limits. If you are a daredevil, I can put you on a 125. You're going to kill yourself because it can go 60 miles an hour, but it's got shit suspension and shit brakes. And above 30 miles an hour, you're in God's hands. That doesn't matter how much helmet you have. If you hit the wrong thing at the wrong speed at the wrong angle, you're gone.
Yeah. One final sort of question I wanted to ask before we look at the filmmaking, which is that just one thing I've kind of picked up on one or two of your videos, sort of potentially voicing concerns about the future of motorcycling in UK. We hear a lot that the age profile of most riders is just getting increasingly older and older, and younger people are not taking it up, certainly not the way they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, do you have any concerns yourself about the future of motorcycling in the UK?
I think you have to have that. Motorcycling back in the day was a cheap way to get mobile, to get to go and have fun with your friends, to travel, to get to work. And in recent years, the manufacturers have just made the motorcycles more and more blingy and more expensive and more full of electronics, so they can charge a premium price on it because they are relying on those people who have been there for a long time and have the bit of spare cash, and they're trying to get the cash off of them. At the same time, the regulation has made it more and more difficult and costly to get a license. If you can imagine, it's not cheap to pay a school for several lessons to get you to module 1 and module 2 ready, and hire the bike and take you to the test. It's not the test that costs much, it's all the training that you have to pay for. So the barrier to entry can be quite high, especially if you're young and you're already struggling with cost of living issues, with an insecure job market and a high cost of living, high fuel prices, housing costs, etc. You can imagine how difficult it is. And then in the UK, there's also an incredibly anti-motorcyclist attitude, I find. If you travel to the continent and you go to Spain or to France, really almost anywhere in Europe, you will find everywhere they encourage people to be on two wheels. They put parking space for you to park for free. They allow you to park on the pavement because they understand a person on a two-wheeler is one less person in a car. It's one or more person who can contribute to the economy, get a job, go and spend money in a cafe and have fun with their friends without having to get a lift from dad or blah, blah, blah. It's an alternative. It's another mode of transport, and it gets people mobile and active. Whereas over here, it's either car-centric or it's cycle-centric. And the motorcycles have fallen through the cracks. And there isn't a strong, united lobby because we're all independent and freedom-loving. So we don't unite around those political organizations. There's one that tries to do it, which is the Motorcycle Action Group. But I'm a member. I pay for membership. I wish them the best. I try to help as much as I can with their campaigns and contacting my local MP. Not that he will ever respond, but I find they a bit toothless and a little bit, as I like to say it, unfortunately, old fart, no poo.
I know exactly what you mean. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Just put actually one final thing before we jump off the sort of the motorcycling topic. I know you've got 2 bikes in the garage at the moment. Perhaps you'd like to tell us about your pride and joy.
Both of them, very different bikes. What to say? Why is it you have 2 motorcycles? It's like I haven't got space for 3. So my first big bike was a Kawasaki Ninja 650, and then I wanted to do a trip with my dad. I wanted to take him pillion for a change. He was going to come over from Brazil, and we were going to go and set off from London and go and see the Isle of Man TT practice week. And I thought the 650 is going to be too uncomfortable, not enough power. So I upgraded to a Kawasaki Z1000 SX, and I was all ready to go. We had booked the ferry. We had booked the accommodation. Everything was paid for. Everything was great. I can't remember what happened that year. It was 2020. So that never happened.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had that bike for a number of years, and I used it for everything, including I was started a job where I had to go into an office, and rather than get on a train and be exposed to people sneezing and coughing and the train developing a fault halfway through, I said I'll bike it to work, motorcycle it to work. But I found that in London, if you're trying to commute, everything is 20 miles an hour, and 20 miles an hour is very aspirational. That's the speed limit, but most of the time you're stuck doing 10, 15. I calculated I averaged 15 miles an hour. And that included doing a section on 50 mile an hour road. So I said, this is going to kill my motorcycle. It's just too much. It's too much power. It's always overheating. So I got the Himalayan. I got a Royal Enfield Himalayan because I thought I'll use that to commute, and then on the weekends I can go do a little bit of green laning. So it's a completely different bike. It's so much easier to maneuver around town.
Yeah.
It copes with the potholes. So yeah, that's what I have. I have my Frankie, the blue Kawasaki, and Waynetta, the dirty Royal Enfield Himalayan.
Is that blue a standard Kawasaki color?
We've come back now to 2026. They have blue again, but this storm cloud blue was done for 1 year. And when I was browsing through Auto Trader to find one, I was going to go for an orange one or a silver one, but my wife and daughter said, no, that blue one, that looks nice. And I'm very glad I listened to them, because it's kind of a rare color. But if you watch the latest video on my channel, you will find there was actually somebody who lives near me who had exactly the same color.
Yeah.
So what are the odds?
I saw that, and I understood because I thought it was quite an unusual color. It is a lovely color, but quite an unusual color. And then, yeah, I understood why you were so excited about spotting another one in the wild and virtually chasing them to catch up with them. And I think you've made contact with them, haven't you, since?
Yeah, it turns out he already subscribed to the channel anyway. I couldn't hear him, but he said, "Oh, it's Noob," but I couldn't hear it with my earplugs. So it comes out in the video a little bit that he said, "Oh, it's Noob." Then I'm saying, "Yeah, look me up on YouTube," but he already knew who I was.
So I'm going to ask an awkward question then. So have you got a favorite of the 2 bikes?
I'm going to give you a very IAM answer. It depends. Depends what I'm trying to do. If I'm going touring in France, it's going to be the Z1000 SX. If I'm going to go and have fun in the twisties, it's going to be the Z1000 SX. If I'm going to explore some natural lanes and I might have to turn around, or if I'm going into town to take some photos with graffiti, it's the Himalayan, no doubt.
Very, very diplomatic, and no bike's feelings were hurt in that answer at all.
It's like you asking me which one of my kids is my favorite. They're all my favorite.
That was exactly where I was heading. Okay. Right. So the YouTube channel you started, that's the NooBiker YouTube channel. It was started or at least you started posting in February 2019. And to date, you've uploaded about 530 videos as we record this, which includes shorts and live streams as well as longer form videos. That's a lot of work. So Why did you start and why do you still do it?
Well, I started it because I wanted to become rich out of making videos for YouTube. The reality soon sets in. I've always enjoyed, one of my other hobbies is photography. And I enjoy the process of editing, and I enjoy filming stuff and then trying to make something usable out of it, and learning that, and kind of learning that art and framing and the sort of visual images. And I kind of said, oh, all these guys have got videos on YouTube. They must be making a ton of money out of advertising. Little did I know. And so it was a mixture of things, of wanting to try new things, wanting to have an excuse to buy more electronic equipment and bling, and thinking maybe something will go viral and I'll make some money out of it, and it might generate an income. It does generate an income. It's like 20 quid a month. That buys you a couple of beers in London. Not much else.
Yeah.
So it's not. I'm going to say it's not a retirement plan, but perversely, it's also introduced me to an entire new and wider community within motorcycling. Because if you just go out locally, you obviously get to meet people who are local to you, and you get to go on certain roads. When you're on YouTube and you're making videos and you're watching other people's videos and you're commenting, and then you're making a video in response to their video, and you get to interact with people from all parts of the country and all parts of the world. It just opens you up to a wider community, and it's a very supportive community as well. They'll say, if you say, look, I don't know if I'm doing this right, do you have any feedback? And they'll say, yeah, well, when you did that was a bit boring. Try to do it this way, or try to keep it to this length. And you meet people who are very forthcoming and very generous with their time and feedback and advice, and helping you to improve and become better.
In terms of your own enthusiasm, does it ebb and flow over time? Like, how often are you putting out a video typically?
So I kind of have settled in over the last couple of years. I think I have put out a video every week. Now, sometimes you have a lot of material and you're able to edit lots of videos and keep them queued up and in store. Sometimes you're not. Now, I have a day job that pays the bills, because YouTube ain't paying the bills. And that's become busier now. And so I'm actually, at the moment, I don't have a video queued up to be published. And I think it's kind of led to reevaluating what I want to do with this channel, because you can get lost in trying to follow a formula and trying to see, if let me grow the channel, and then if I get more views, then I'll get more income, and maybe I'll be able to get sponsorship, and maybe I'll be able to get Patreon and buy me a coffee and all that kind of stuff. And it then becomes a job. And it's no longer a hobby. It just becomes a grind, and you're now kind of just feeding into the machine. You're creating content for almost nothing. You're getting almost nothing in return. The only people who are benefiting are the owners of the platform, because they get this free content and they get to advertise on it. And I think it was actually something that I heard of your podcast, your episode with Bruce Smart, and he hit home when he said, you have to be your true self, because otherwise you become a phony. And I almost kind of caught myself as, am I becoming a phony? Am I just trying to copy what I think is going to work? Am I just trying to create content that I think is going to appeal to a wider audience, and therefore is going to get more views, in a futile attempt to sort of grow the channel, whatever the hell that means? And I thought, you know what? Maybe there are some topics that I avoid because I don't want to upset the audience, and I don't want to do things. And maybe it's time to think about it again, and maybe go in a different direction and just change it, and just come to a point of acceptance. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be a hobby. It's going to be something that I do when I can, and I'm going to reprioritize things in my life, and maybe there will be fewer episodes going forward, but it will be different. It will be more genuine, and you won't be as phony.
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually, because one thing, I like to look at my guests those who do have YouTube channels, and I like to look at things like development over time, what things were like when you started and what things are like now. But another thing that's quite useful just for the casual observer like me is that you can look at what's most popular. And by far your most popular video is almost like a little documentary that you made. And I remember watching it, I think last year. Did it come out last year?
Yeah.
Maybe can you just tell us a little bit about that and your motivation for making it? Because I think it was, I can understand why that was so popular, but maybe if you can just describe it a little bit for us.
Okay, there's an interesting story behind that. I saw, I can't remember the guy's name, I'm so sorry. It's a motorcycling journalist. He usually covers MotoGP. He's on Twitter, and I'm still going to call it Twitter. I refuse to call it whatever it's called now. And he was advertising a book that he wrote, 2 books that he wrote actually, and I bought both of them over Christmas, and I read them over Christmas because they were fantastic. One was called Stealing Speed, and one was called Racing Hitler. So the Racing Hitler one was about this English guy who, when the land speed record was being broken on almost a monthly basis, he was, racing his bikes, going down to Hungary and wherever they had the straightest bit of road, so he can do it. And he was doing it on his own budget, whereas in Germany they were doing it because Hitler was putting a whole lot of money into BMW and trying to raise the profile of his country. So that was super interesting. And the other one was called Stealing Speed, which was about the guy who used to work for DKW, the East German manufacturer. Yeah, basically how they stole the 2-stroke technology from East Germany. The Suzuki stole it, took it to Japan, and then was super successful with that. But the Racing Hitler book talked a lot about the engines that they were using, and they talked about JAP, which I never knew was, I thought it was, you were supposed to pronounce it Jap. I thought it was a bit of a slur. But just John A. Prestwich. And his factory was in Tottenham. And I'm going like, it was? But that's like 30 minutes away from me. I can just go around the North Circular and I'm there. And I researched and I found out where the address of the factory, and I looked on Google Street View and I saw that the facade of the factory was still there. Mm. And then I researched a little bit more and I found that there was a museum in there that had a whole lot of historical photographs of the place. So I decided, I'm going to go and visit that museum, and on my way there, I'm going to stop at this place. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, the little bit that I've gleaned from doing some research. And I just thought it was a bit interesting. Little did I know how he was going to blow up completely.
Has that given you pause to think, maybe I should do more things like that, maybe less frequently, right? Like rather than putting out a video every week, maybe I should spend time doing research, really get into something and put out things like that.
That's exactly what I'm coming through, because people say, oh, you must have a regular upload schedule, otherwise people will just stop watching your stuff. And I'm going like, yeah, well, like whatever. I don't care. I don't care anymore. But then it becomes this was just one of those spur of the moment things. I read something, it is spurred that interest, and I found out about it. So maybe it's something I need to explore. I'm not sure that I can find the time to then research a whole bunch of topics. And then it really has to be interesting to you. I think it comes through. If it's not interesting and you're just going through the motions, then it's not the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there is another one that I do want to do, that I want to explore a bit more. Even closer to me is a suspension factory for a famous British racer called Hagon. So Hagon, I've ridden past that factory a million times. I never knew he was there. But I want to go and do something about that at some point.
What was the biggest challenge for you when you first started moto vlogging?
Getting used to the sound of my own voice.
Okay, but actually I mean, you jest, but at the same time,
I don't jest. It's true. It's absolutely 100% true. That it's an honest answer. I'm not deflecting.
Okay, so I think I was talking to someone quite recently about this. You can teach yourself to get over your hatred of your own voice, and it's almost a bit of a superpower. Like, no one likes the sound of their own voice, but if you can get over your hatred of it, it means that you can listen critically to what you're producing, what you're doing. So I'm laughing, but I'm kind of like, well, actually, you're absolutely right, because you've got to be able to get over that. Otherwise, you'll never be able to grow in what you're trying to do. You'll never be able to improve. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, but is that what you think as well?
It's that initial massive cognitive dissonance, because it's like, I know that is my voice, but it doesn't sound like what I hear inside my head. And you go like, is that really how I sound? And then it's like you reject it, and then you kind of accept it. And then I think once you get over that, then you train yourself, and a few episodes later, you say, yeah, that's how I sound, like whatever. But when you hear for the first few times, it's quite a shock. I don't sound anything like that. What the hell's going on? Yeah, and honestly, for the first few times, I actually thought, what I'll do is I'll find some kind of computer-generated voice. I'll put some text in, and I'll have it generate a voice that's going to be better than what I sound like.
Okay, so recently, a couple of episodes back, I actually had to do that. Like I used AI because I'd had a sort of a critical dropout in my guest's voice, and I basically had to regenerate them saying 2 or 3 words using an AI tool, and it was remarkable because it was literally text to speech. But in that case, the tool trained on what their voice was like, and so it sounded exact. It is amazing what you can do. I mean, you can make yourself sound like whoever. I think that was an ethical use of AI. There are lots of what I consider to be unethical uses of AI, but I think in that case that was an ethical use, because there was no way I was going to recover that problem in an edit, and no way that I could reproduce the recording, so it would just sound clunky, you know. So I can sleep with myself at night having done it that way. And I was very open with the audience and with my guest as well. I said, hey, Guy, can I do this? And I showed him what I was doing. He was completely fine with it. But yeah, if you had started this now rather than, you know, when you started YouTubing in 2019, you actually would have been able to generate a voice. But it would have been cheating, you know, Noob. It wouldn't have been the same thing. We like the sound of your voice. I'm just putting it out there, you know.
I was surprised. I've had that feedback a few times, and it was like, you know, you have a very calming voice. I'm going like, really? Okay, great. And then, you know, it's great to hear, because you never know. You're always full of self-doubt. You know, how do I come across, and do I sound weird, and then all that kind of stuff. And when people say, I find the sound of your voice calming, and if you're nice to listen to, I'm going like, wow, this is just so nice and rewarding to hear that, and encouraging. And then you take a huge positive boost out of that.
I mean, when did you start to learn English?
So when I was about 12 years old, my parents had both been exchange students in the US. So they had what they call their American families. So when I was about 12, they packed me into an airplane and sent me over. And the first couple of families I stayed with, they spoke Portuguese, because they were the returning exchange students, so they had learned it in Brazil. And then the third family came along, and it was basically, this is it, I'm on my own. It's me and a Portuguese to English dictionary. And I kind of learned, and then you have English lessons in school, but it's very substandard. And then 16, I arrived in London thinking I knew English, but I'd learned American English, so it's not really proper. And then, you know, you try to make it through school and trying to do your exams, and then you're struggling a little bit. So that, you know, in at the deep end, as they say, off you go. Sink or swim.
Yeah, because I find it quite interesting, because it's you know, absolutely fluent, and has sort of an interesting, the accent that you've chosen or picked up is, there's a mixture of stuff in there, and I find that quite interesting. But
Well, because I don't have a received accent. I didn't grow up with one.
Yeah.
I learned to speak English afterwards. And so I find I catch myself, if I spend a lot of time with somebody who has a particular accent, you end up aping it and you copy it. I'm not doing it because I want to mock it. I'm just kind of repeating what I have. Obviously now, having lived in East London for nearly 30 years, this again, it's a diverse community here, so it's just all sorts. It's not like there is a single accent that everybody uses. And so you end up being really none of them and all of them.
Yeah. I once heard that beyond about 20 or something, about that age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, you're basically pretty much stuck with the accent that you have at that time. I've got one son who sounds like a American because he sort of was in, he wasn't in the local school system when we lived in Singapore, when we lived in the Philippines, but he actually went to university in New Zealand, and his te reo pronunciation, which is the Māori language of New Zealand, his pronunciation of te reo is actually much better than mine. So if he wants to, he doesn't have to sound like an American. But my younger son is a lot more neutral in his accent. And when he went to university, because we live in Germany now, everyone at the university just thought they called him German Finn, that's his name. And so they just thought he was German because his accent was so neutral. It wasn't American and it wasn't New Zealand. I think he sounds a bit more like a New Zealander now. But yeah, this is something I'd heard that, people who'd moved to New Zealand in their 20s from the UK, 50 years later, still had this very strong English accent from wherever they came from in England or the UK, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. But yeah, I'd heard it. Once you've reached about 20, you're pretty much stuck with that accent. Yeah. Did you find when you first started motoblogging that you were struggling to find topics to talk about, or was that never a problem? Did you always think, this is the least of my problems. I've got to listen to my own voice. That's the worst thing. Then I've got to deal with all the technology, cameras, microphones, and stuff like that. But what about the actual topics, things that you wanted to talk about?
A lot of times I just went out and I didn't have anything to talk about, so I didn't. And then when you do have something that you want to talk about, then there you go. You're on a motorcycle. Here's your chance to talk about what you want to talk without being interrupted by somebody else. So then you just blurt it out and you get it out, because everywhere else, if you're talking to yourself, people are going to think you're nuts. But somehow if you're just speaking into your helmet and nobody else can hear you, then that's so cool, right?
Yeah. Unless I think Really Good TV pulled up at the lights in Spain, I think, last winter, and he was still talking away, and I think the person next to him was sort of looking up, who are you talking to, buddy? Because he was still vlogging as he was going along at the lights there.
That's one thing I try not to do is if I'm stopped at the lights, I stop talking, because it's wasted video. Because nobody wants to see you stopped at the lights. They want to see you moving about. So that's one thing I picked up is like, if you're talking about something and you stop at the lights, stop talking, carry on after you start moving again. Because people will switch off for the oddest reasons.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that was my next question, which is, have you been able to sort of understand or identify what an audience might respond to positively in terms of what you're talking about? Like, have you figured out what people like to listen to you talking about?
Again, so I think it really depends. I think what people want to engage with is they want to engage with the person. Almost it doesn't matter what you're talking about. I think it's they want to engage with what you're thinking, and they want to say I agree or I don't agree, or they'll give their own perspective. So it almost doesn't matter. I don't think. I think it's whatever you feel something about. You either feel passionate about or you feel against it. And so long as you can put those thoughts and put that into words and explain why, then you will engage a response. So it could be whatever. It could be something that you saw in the news. It could be a new motorcycle that has come out. It could be the motorcycle that you're reviewing. It could be the town that you've just passed through. If it made a mark on you, if it made you feel something, talk about it.
Mm. That sort of reminds me, my guest from episode 50, Johnny Doyle, the lad with the beard, he said something which I've been thinking about again and again and again since I recorded that interview with him. He said something along the lines of, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but he said, when we were talking about motor vlogging specifically, he said, there's no point just watching one video from a motor vlogger. You need to watch a whole series of their videos to get to know them, to see if they resonate with you. You know, he was sort of saying sometimes he goes out and he'll say a few words and that's it. And he says, that's what I felt like saying on those days. And if you come in and think that you're going to get to know me from watching just one video, that's not how it works. You've actually got to watch several of my videos to really decide whether you like the way I see the world, resonate with me, etc., etc. Does that make sense to you? Is that something that you feel as well, that you've got to spend some time through a series of videos to sort of build up a relationship with the audience? I know it's a parasocial relationship, it's not a real relationship, but to give them a chance to get to know you and to decide whether they like you, basically.
I think it's nice if they do. I think it's nice if they want to engage long term. That's cool and that's lovely. And I have lovely people who comment and watch almost every video, and the audience finds you and you end up vibing with those people and you have those interactions. And there are other people who come in for one topic only, and they're searching specifically for, I don't know, a particular motorcycle that you've had a test ride on, or a particular tire that you tried, or a particular piece of equipment that you talked about, and they just want to ask about that, and that's fine too. There are different audiences and horses for courses, as it were. There are people who want to follow along and see where you're going, and you do the same thing back to them. So you almost, it's almost like writing letters in a way, but instead of doing it with a pen and putting it in a post, you're doing it with a camera and you're putting it on YouTube. So there's a lot of that, right? Oh, I saw that video by blah, 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 and I thought this, and you're kind of responding to each other in a way.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I'm really interested in this, almost like I hope this doesn't sound too wanky, but from a sociological point of view, the whole moto vlogging concept or community, because there is this community, and I know that you're very much part of that community. I mean, at the moment, I would say in many ways it's centered around what Peaky Biker does with his Wednesday night live show, and he's brought this community of sort of vloggers, and he has these people come on, you've been on, and you're all from all over the UK and even from Ireland, but you all have this common thing where you like to, in your own time, vlog, but then what you're just saying now is it's almost this form of communication between all of you, not in real time. It's sort of, you put something out there and it's a response. I hadn't thought about that before, and I will have to make note of that and include it in the academic paper I plan to write about this one day.
I feel like a guinea pig now.
Not at all. You've just provided a really interesting insight.
So I think you talk about Brian and the Peaky Bike and the midweek mumble. He's one. So there are several of them. There are several regular live streams, as it were. There's some that I've watched many times. There's Time to Go and his crowd. They usually, I think, do it on a Saturday. Exeter Rider, who actually put me in touch with you, and I know he's been on your show as well. He used to run a regular one. I sometimes, when I feel the urge, or there's somebody that I particularly want to talk to, I'll run the occasional one. But it's not a regular thing. It's like it's got to be somebody that I actually want to interact with. That's one way of doing it. So you're doing it online, but there's also a huge sort of subgenre, if you like, of, hey, I know that you motovlog and I motovlog, and you're in that part of the world and I'm in that part of the world. Why don't we meet up? and talk about motorbikes. And so one of the best set of friends I've made in motorcycling are actually all based in the southwest of the country, because Saddlebags 73 ran a social meetup, and I went to it, and I met up with a whole bunch of other guys and loved meeting them, and we've been on WhatsApp ever since, teasing the heck out of each other. And so we went for these social rides, and you kind of bring the sort of virtual YouTube into the real world. And just recently I was up in the peaks with another motor vlogger, and you have these real life meetups that are initiated by you. Yeah, I've watched your video, and now you're putting a video saying that you're going to run this social thing. I've got to come to that because I like your bike. I like you. I like the way you are. And it'd be nice to meet you in person.
It's almost like the vlogging, the motor vlogging is almost secondary. It's almost like the channel or the conduit to make these connections, these virtual connections become real physical connections. And yeah, you can almost pre-screen people. Go, oh, I like this. Yeah, I've been watching you. I quite like you. And yeah, I see a certain parallel with running this podcast, because I spend a lot of time watching videos of potential guests. And when I often sit down with the guests, I forget, oh, you don't know me. I've been watching you for hours and hours. I know everything about you, but don't you know, oh, that's right, you don't know me at all. And it's kind of funny, because it means that I often feel immediately very comfortable in the moment when the connection's made and we start talking. And I have no right to feel that comfortable, but it's because I sort of feel I know my guest already before we've even started talking, which is, yeah, it's kind of a funny experience. But I can understand there's a parallel to what you guys go through as you follow each other and watch each other online before you actually get to know each other in person.
And the thing is, you only know what that person has chosen to review on video,
of course,
or what they've chosen to talk about. So you know that particular aspect of them, but they don't have their own backstories and their own other struggles they're dealing with. And you know how it is in any social media, you always present the facade or the front that you want to present, and you should 100% be in control of what you choose to put out there, and what you choose to keep private, because you don't know who's watching you. Could be somebody nice, it could be some crazy person, right? But then when you actually meet people face to face and you build up that additional relationship, then you start talking about more stuff, right? Then there's degrees to it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I do want to ask you a couple of technical questions. What equipment are you using to capture your rides these days? And has it taken a lot of work to come to a point where you're happy with what you're using, or are you always looking for something better, or yeah? I
am 100% not happy with what I'm using, but I don't think it's to do with the equipment. So I started with, like I think everybody does, with the GoPros and the little brick on the side of the helmet and the purple Panda microphone. And then the GoPro just decided to conk out on me one too many times. So I've ditched that and I've gone to DJI. So my main helmet camera is a DJI Osmo 4, Action 4. And I bought the DJI Mic Mini 2, so the two of them. So I basically put the wireless transmitter inside my helmet with the camera on the outside, and they communicate wirelessly when they choose to talk to each other. I also then got the DJI Osmo 360, so sometimes I'll make a video using the 360. And it's okay, they work fine up to a certain speed, but then I think it's the helmet that I choose to use. There's just way too much wind noise. So sometimes it just becomes unusable, and you have to do a voiceover, or you have to use what I now switched to using as a desktop editing software is the DaVinci Resolve, and it has an AI feature for voice isolation. So if you use it in moderation, it can actually cut out some of the wind noise for you in a really fast way.
Yeah. So I noticed on the the island tour that you did you do the tour last year or did you do the tour?
It was last year, yeah.
So I noticed, I think towards the end you had a day or a couple of days when the audio dropped out completely. What was the cause of that? Can you remember?
Yeah, so you switch on your microphone inside your helmet, and you've got your camera on, and you don't got to run the camera all day long because your memory card will run out of memory and your battery will die. And so you're switching the camera on when you think something nice is going to come up. And your expectation is when you switch the camera on, the blinking blue light that's inside your helmet is going to go solid. That means your microphone's connected. And now you can speak and you will be recorded. And there was many periods when the camera was on, the microphone was on, and they were just going, yeah, computer says no, we're not going to talk to each other. And then you switch it off, and then half an hour later you switch it back on, and then they talk to each other, and then you're fine. And there was a day when they just decided that for the day they weren't going to talk to each other. And I'm not about to stop an entire group of bikers to say, could you please hold on for 15 minutes while I fiddle around with these buttons and try to get the microphone and the camera, because they would just tell me to Foxtrot Oscar and carry on. So you just say, yeah, there's nothing I can do here. I'll just enjoy the ride now.
It's interesting because one of the things I have noticed about your videos, particularly because I've concentrated on the more recent ones, is just how good the audio in your helmet is. So there are a lot of people out there who really struggle. I don't know, is it the DaVinci Resolve that's actually helping to clean it up? But what I thought was interesting is that when you've got the visor up or down, it's still really good and clear and yeah, better than average, I would say.
It is up to a certain speed. If you then get up to national speed limit, 60 miles an hour or the motorway, forget about it. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It just isn't. There's just too much wind noise coming through.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for custom-made earplugs, because otherwise I'd be deaf. So, yeah.
What helmet are you using most of the time?
So when I'm on the Kawasaki, it's a Shoei GT Air 2. Now, I don't know if because of the fact that there is a camera now introducing turbulence on the entrance of it, that's causing it. Because it doesn't sound that bad if I don't have any of the stuff on, right? If I take everything off. But it's always been the case, whereas if you have the camera on, then either it's interfering with the airflow, because it's right in front of the vent, and then you're starting to fog up or whatever, or it gets really noisy.
Yeah, because I've had a GT Air 2 and now I have a 3, and they are supposed to be relatively quiet. I don't know if they are, but they're supposed to be. So that's interesting. But one thing, have you tried, the little chin curtains that you can sit? Apparently they can reduce the noise quite a bit. Have you tried that?
I have the chin curtain installed, and not only do I have the chin curtain installed, I have some extra dead cat here attached to my face.
Yeah,
with a neck tube. So it really there shouldn't be much wind noise because there's this massive dead cat attached to my face.
Yeah.
But as I said, especially even if you have like the visor slightly cracked, the amount of air that comes through, there's a dead cat on the microphone. But it's right on because it's the microphone is the magnetic one. So you put that on the inside of the breath guard and with the magnetic thing on the other side so it doesn't fall off.
Right.
But yeah, that's picking up. If you're going 60 miles an hour, it's going to pick up a lot of noise.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I'm impressed with how clear it is. So.
Well, that's because I only talk when I'm going slower.
Yeah. Oh, well, but when you talk, it sounds good. But okay, in terms of cameras, is there something on the market that you think would be better, or is it just a limit with the technology?
I would like to find something where I can have better sound, but I'm fairly happy with the image quality of the Action 4. Funds allowing, I might go and get an Action 6, because that would allow me to have both microphones connected to it, and I could do a little bit more to people. I can do that with the 360, but not with the Action 4. The Action 4 can only pair with one microphone at a time.
Okay.
So when I got the MiG-2, one of the first things I shot with the MiG-2 is I went to the Bike Shed London show, which is a custom motorcycle show, when I had my Canon mirrorless doing the video. and I had the DJI receiver attached to the camera via a cable. And you work for most of the time, but I had my daughter filming it, and I didn't have her wearing the earphones to monitor the audio. And towards the end of that weekend, I think the cable must have got dislodged. So there were a few videos that just like, that had no audio. And I was like, those are the best ones. Those are the ones I was interviewing somebody and I really wanted to have that, and it just got lost.
Actually, while you mentioned that, tell me about your EICMA experience. Was that the first time you'd been to EICMA last year?
It was the very first time I've been to EICMA, yes.
And what cameras did you use for those videos?
I took the DJI Action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you planning to go back again in the future?
I would love to go back again. I'm not sure it's going to work out this year. They've got a lot already on, done a lot of things at work, and I think I can only take so much time off. But maybe, we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely very eye-opening and very worthwhile going to.
Okay, we're sort of heading towards the home straight, Noob. So I've just got a couple of final questions that I want to ask you. With regards to your own filmmaking, who have you taken inspiration from, or who would you recommend others to watch?
Well, there's all sorts, right? There's going from the sort of the big channels. I think everybody took some inspiration at some point or another from Baron von Grumble. I think he's the OG of the motovloggers. But, you know, he's super talented, super opinionated. And then you have the sort of the hierarchy of those are very, very aspirational ones with the big production values, your Ryan F9s, your Ichi Boots, your big channels, you know, Lamb Chop Rides and all of that sort of malarkey. But then you have the sort of more down to earth that you think, you know, it's more of an achievable level. People who are more like you, your Saddleback 73, your Exeter Rider, your Poolies, Peaky Biker, people who are just like you, doing things like you, just trying stuff out, learning as you go, and really having a conversation. Because when you're a big channel, you're Baron von Grumble, 44 Teeth, and Ryan F9, you haven't got time to respond to everyone. Yeah, you've built a community, but it's more of a one-way relationship. And then you have the ones with whom you can actually have a two-way relationship. And so there's a mix of those.
Mm. Okay. Does the filming enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
Bit of both. Sometimes it gets in the way, and so you must learn to sort of put your camera away and say, this one's just for me. And there's other ones where you say, I really want to share this with the people who are part of the community. I want to show them this. This is really fantastic. And, you know, it will give me great pleasure for them to see this as well and share them with me, because you're there on your own, in your own mind. And it's nice to then afterwards say, this is what I did. What do you think? You know, and let them enjoy as well.
Thanks so much for being my guest today, Noob. Now's your chance to tell folk where they can find and follow you online.
Thanks very much, Simon. It's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed. Great questions. Very pleasurable time. And people like the sound of what they hear and they want to find out more. I'm on YouTube. Will be the main vehicle that I use for that. I also sometimes post on TikTok, where I'm trying to bring up the average age. And then there's all the other social media channels where I mainly use it to sort of plug the YouTube content. So you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky. Yeah, I think that's about it really. But yeah, I enjoy making videos and taking photos and putting them on Instagram too. So you can find me on all of those.
Super. Look, thanks again for being here today. Take care and ride safe.
Thank you very much. And I hope to see you and meet you in real life at some point.
Absolutely.